Hey fellow nuclear barons, it's me, Mario. And today finally, after some time, we're gonna talk about Experiment C, the third experiment of the base game of Nucleum. So Experiment C is pretty blunt in your face. It's all about energizing. But that's not to say that it's a simple and easy experiment to grok. Actually, there are a lot of things that you have to know if you want to play a good game with Experiment C. As always, let's start off with some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses. Let's start with the strengths first, why not? The C7 tech, as always, we're gonna take a look at the level 3 permanent power tech first. Is very strong, and it's what makes this experiment work in a very peculiar way. So this part is basically the reverse of experiment A. It says that you can energize any building on the whole board, even if there's no network connecting it to powerhouses, to places where you can produce, to get the coal. So basically you can just have a building plop down over here, have Nucleum in this powerhouse here, and you can have a mine over here, and you can take the uranium from over here, the coal from over here, and energize this building, choosing to use this one, this power plant. So it's pretty flexible in what we'll let you do, but it actually says that you have a preferred way to play the game, as we're going to see. The other level 3 tech gives you point depending on how many of your, we'll see why that's important, of buildings that you own you have energized by the end of the game, 4, 6 and 8 being the thresholds. This is actually not that easy to fulfill, and it makes it so that C is always very hungry for tech tiles that will let it energize more than with just the basic tiles. It does have the same 1-2 punch of A, C1 and C4. C4 is probably, I'm not sure, but I played the game a lot more than last time that I recorded videos for A and B, and right now I think this might be the strongest level 2 tech of all. It's probably on par with the big tech that will let you get 2 bonus when you get a contract. But this tile is just amazing at getting you new tiles. You're gonna get a tile for free each time that you energize. Forget about the worker, you can use the worker every now and then, but most of the time this is going to be your preferred way of getting tiles, and it's a tech tile that you it's a tech that you should unlock first and foremost. You should really have a plan to unlock this tech when you go for C, along with, of course, the level 3 tech. This one is just amazing at getting you new tiles. Once you get the level 3 tech, you don't need many railroads. So the few that you need, you should be able to get them thanks to this tech. So you basically don't plan to take often, if at all, the develop action, which is, as of now, I could say it out loud, it's by far the worst action in the game, and you should try to take it as least as possible with every experiment, except maybe for D. And of course C1 goes really well with this one because it's gonna give you coins, and you might need these coins either to urbanize or to get coal for the first few productions. So that's pretty cool. A bit of a weakness out of the techs is that this experiment doesn't have 2 level 2 permanent techs as with A, so it does have 2 instant ones. The +4 production is actually very cool and very important for your own goal of the level 3 tech, just because it's another free energize action. You really want to energize a lot with this experiment. That's very different from A. So A wants to urbanize a lot and of course energize as much as he can to power those buildings, but he can get away with just like 3 or 4 actions of energizing. What we'd see, you would really try to get at least 5 energize action plus your tech, but probably you want 7 energize action in the game plus this one, or even more if you energize the neutral buildings. So this tech is very good. This one is a bit tricky. Getting a tile for free and placing it down is good, don't get me wrong. And it can also help in a pinch to do some very interesting stuff like energizing a level 2 lab and immediately putting down a tile, energizing something else and connecting something that your opponents didn't see that you could connect to. It's very useful in a pinch. It's just a tricky one to use well. A lot of the time you find a good use of it, but it's not always easy to find the optimal use for it, which is actually good. It's a high skill cup tech, I would say. This one is the same that it does have in connection with A, and it's actually more useful almost for C, I think, because it's you're so focused on getting so many energize actions that sometimes you don't have enough urbanize action to reach the 8 buildings you need to fulfill the highest level of the level 3 tech. So this one is actually very useful. This one, while in B, I think it can work pretty well. With this one, I'm not sure, because since you can use any power plant to produce, to energize into, you can always choose the one that has Nucleum and the most of your turbines. But yeah, so why not? You still have it. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the weakest level 1 techs, but it can still be useful every now and then. Out of the starting tiles, this is actually a bit weird to me. As we saw, I don't think that developing a lot is useful with C early on, since you really want to use the level, the C4 tech to get new tiles. And this one has a, I wouldn't say major disadvantage, but is a disadvantage in my opinion, which is that you have to commit to the board while getting tech tiles. So you can of course use the wild tile, so you're not forced to do that, but it can be a bit tricky to commit to the board while getting tech tiles. Normally you want to get the double action tech tiles from the offer and then be a bit flexible with what you're gonna do with them. It can work pretty well though, so it can be a strength too. If you can secure a mine spot you really want. Sometimes you really want a tile that's on offer, but you also don't want to give up tempo on placing down mines. And this one can be pretty useful for that. So it's not bad, it's just a bit weird. This one is incredibly good instead, as with all the tiles with the rainbow end and extra resources. You really want to be able to place tiles down close to the beginning of the game to be able to find a good spot to build into, as we're going to see. And this one makes it very easy because you will almost always get the double action out of it. These other two are just like basic tiles, nothing to write home about. This one instead is pretty cool and is part of what makes the overall plan of C being, I wouldn't say as rigid as A, but still you have a way to play the early game that will make this one stronger. So basically with C, if with A you can build everywhere, but you really want to spam building everywhere, so you're not focused on a single city, so you want to use the other people's network to energize, and you want to build your own little network just to connect the government buildings. With C, you really want to focus on an area, because you don't want to waste tiles on rails. You really want to build a lot in a single area. Normally, not always, that single area is either Dresden or Leipzig. It depends a lot on the starting contracts, on the purple contracts, on the gold contracts available. So it's not always the case. But these two areas are what are going to let you build the most without setting up too many raids. But sometimes C can really exploit Praha too, just building there and building pretty much everything there, since they will not... The main disadvantage with Praha is that you need to connect to a power plant. And while this one is pretty close, this path is a bit miserable. No one is going to help you. The spots for the mines suck, so of course it's not that easy, and also you will produce just with uranium. You need at least another rail to get to the coal. So Praha is not, also Praha doesn't count towards a lot of the contracts. So it's not an ideal opening scenario for any experiment, but if there's one that can make it work, that's C. Just because you can pile up buildings over there and forget about building a network for them. And also C likes to pile up mines in a spot because it doesn't need to connect them to use the uranium. So if A also likes a lot, and in some way B too, I mean, every experiment can work with a mine spam. Mine rushing is a pretty decent and good strategy for most experiments, in my opinion. With C, you can just do it and then forget about the mines. You can use them once you unlock the level 3 tech. So you don't really have to focus on having a long-term plan to connect the mines to your system, which is pretty cool. So this one works really well because in each and every game with C, in my opinion, you're gonna have a lot of mines. So you're gonna have, if not a lot, quite a bit of uranium. And this tech will make it so that it's way easier to reach the highest levels of the milestone track, which is pretty cool. Among the weaknesses that I would like to point out right now, we are gonna discuss more in detail about them when we discuss about milestones precisely, but a weakness of C is that C has problems, maybe problem, it's a bit too hard of a word, but it's not always easy for C to fulfill the milestones at their fullest. That's because C is really committed to energize a lot. Most of its experiment leads you towards that goal. So it's pretty hard for C to focus and optimize a single milestone, like for example A can do for any kind of urban buildings milestone. So C, in my opinion, most of the time will scatter a bit its stars and maybe fulfill their condition like 3 times instead of the full 4 times. That's because, again, energizing is most of the time more important than just building a lot or focusing a lot on one of the milestones. I think this is a bit of a weakness that you should be aware of. It doesn't happen in every game. In some games you can, depending on the length of the game, you can really hammer some milestones. But most of the time I think that C is an experiment that is fine scattering its stars on the milestone track without focusing too much on single of them. At least that's what I think. Also another weakness of C, but I don't see it as a very big weakness, is that it's a bit hard to focus too much on more than one single government buildings. That's because they normally, as I said, like to pile up buildings in some areas. So you're gonna sneak in one government building in that area, hopefully the one that will max out itself already with your buildings. Maybe you can add one rail. Like let's just do an example right now. Let's say you have a tile over here and you start building over here. Maybe you can build a house, another house. Here the government buildings for houses. And you can have this link over here, and maybe you can place, because you need it to reach Dresden in some way, and then you are gonna use another link over here, and maybe somebody else place down houses over here, so you can score a bit more. But more than one government building, it's not that easy. You can of course place down more than one. What I'm saying is that it's pretty hard to optimize more than one government building for C. At least, again, that's my opinion. It works very well with houses because all the big cities have houses in them. So that's why it works really well with houses. Actually, I should bump it up a bit. This one and probably this one, I think, now that I noticed. So yeah, there's that. So what's your general game plan? Again, in my opinion, you're gonna spam out mines all the time with C. So the first action might be this one. you spam out mines in that location, maybe get one of the good tiles, hopefully one that does have energize onto it. That would be cool. Then you choose a location for your urban buildings. Leipzig is also very good because you connect to it thanks to this tile. You can even place it here without losing coins, and actually this link is probably one of the most contested in the game. There's a reason it costs 2 coins. And after that you start building some buildings and energizing quite a bit. As per turbines, I think it's a bit counterintuitive. You can, of course, in some games start off with the 3rd turbine and start energizing neutral buildings or maybe your small buildings. But in my opinion, your first turbine, since you will be doing, if not a mine rush, at least placing down some mines at the start, I think your aim should really be to unlock the 4th turbine before anything else. You really want your level 3 tech active as soon as possible, and then you can focus on the other ones. So I would even try to recharge with 0 stars early on without caring too much about energizing, which is fun because again, this experiment is mainly about energizing, but I really think that you want a plan that will let you unlock the level 3 tech before anything else. Also, how do you develop after this starting game plan? Well, you have all the neutral buildings ready for you. I didn't take them out of the bag because they are all good for C, in my opinion. C is the best one at exploiting neutral buildings, of course, because it doesn't need to build up a connection to them. So you can snipe them out when other players are trying to connect them, and you can reap the rewards. There's a problem though. You don't have to be too greedy. I saw players, and I've been one of them, being too greedy and excited at being able of exploiting all these neutral buildings early on, and then they were not able to power up 6 of their buildings even, let alone 8. So neutral buildings can really help you jumpstart your economy, but you should go for them only if you're able to secure 1 or maybe 2 energize action extra tiles. Otherwise, it can be really tricky to fit all the energizing action you need for your objective while also energizing neutral buildings. So be careful with that. Neutral buildings are really good for C, and you have to use them in most games. Just don't be greedy and try to energize them all. Remember, you need your own buildings for your own goal. This one is 21 points. Come on, try to get them. So that's what I have to say about neutral buildings. Let's talk a bit about milestones. Well, the easiest milestones for C is, in my opinion, mines. Again, I don't think I've ever played a game with C where I didn't max out on mines, so I think that's easily the best milestone for them. And then there's houses, because of the reasons we saw first, that you really like to pile up buildings in the same location, and all the locations with 4+ slots are full of houses, so you prefer houses than other milestones, because the other one will have you scatter your buildings around, which will need a proper network, and you don't care about network, you know. Then there are these other T3, because I mean, they can be good, it's not they cannot be good, but as I said, C doesn't really look at fulfilling each milestone at their fullest. So even if you place down like 3 labs or 3 factories or 3 turbines, that's already good. Remember, a lot of your total number of actions are going to be energize actions. So you really need to save as many actions as you can from the other actions. So you really want maybe to focus on one and then do what you can with another milestone, and that's gonna be it. These two Actually, I really thought this one was incredibly good for C, and now that I played C more, I think it's one of the worst. You really don't want to produce to energize buildings in many different cities, so this one is very good for A, and it's C tier for C. And this one for the same reason that I was talking about before. It's not easy to urbanize a lot when you're trying to also energize a lot. Depending on your tiles, of course, it can be good, but most of the time it's not. And this one is just bad. It's bad for pretty much every experiment other than D, and B can make it work, I guess. But for A and C, it's utterly horrible, in my opinion. Then there are the purple objectives. You won't be surprised to see the 6 energized urban buildings first. This is basically the C objective. I think this is a contract you should get in each and every game if you're playing C. If somebody else is stealing it from you, it's because probably they got the double energized tile. Oh, by the way, the double energized tile. So this is one of the 2 most powerful tiles in the game. It's double energized and double urbanized tiles. But for C, this tile is just it's disgusting how good this tile is. In general, it's very good because in the second part of the game, you really want to energize more to reach all the milestone and the energy thresholds. Energy thresholds. But with C, it's just bonkers. It makes it so that you don't even have to choose if you want to energize the neutral buildings or focus on your own buildings. You can just do it all. This style is just that good. You want to also recharge a lot probably with this one, just because you want to play it like 3 or 4 times in a game. And the other 2, I mean, this one is horrible, and even this one is not that great most of the time, because once again, it depends a lot on the contracts, of course. But you're not as flexible as other experiment with following a lot of the requirement of the contracts. So I think it's okay. It's not amazing. This one is a distant third though. Then there are these ones. I think you are really good at fulfilling. I should switch them actually. Up. You're really, really, really good at fulfilling the white or the orange purple contracts, just because again, Dresden and Leipzig are the 2 best spots for C to build into, and the houses we've already talked about why houses are better for C. But the other 2 can be decent too. Again, anything that will let you focus on a few cities while still making good things out of it, it's very good for you. So that's why they are all pretty good. Yeah, these 2, they are meh. I really think that if you get them with C, it means that somebody is doing something wrong. Like A should always be able to rush you, to rush these contracts before you. So I don't consider them much. And the last category, the mine ones, it won't surprise you, are very good for your C experiments because you're gonna rush mines most of the time. This one is one of the worst, and these 2 are meh. I don't think you're as fast as other at reaching 17 stars, but it can be decent. I think that both B and D have an upper hand to the 17-star contract just because they have the plus 8 stars tech. But still, it's something you can do. This one is also something you can do. I think in many games you're gonna max out on turbines, but not in all of them. So, especially the first one is not one you put a high priority into. So, it depends. It depends a lot. I would say that's all. Really, C is a bit one-dimensional in that it really needs the level 3 tech unlocked as soon as possible. And then it needs to energize a lot, but that's not to say that it's easy to play, because there are a lot of choices to it. Like when you're using the C4 tech, you all the time need to choose one of the tiles available and be mindful, because you probably will not develop even a single time after maybe the first time in the game, which is very different from what other experiments do. And sometimes you you have to think about building a bit of a network to optimize your government buildings. And still, it's a good puzzle to try to fit together all these energizing action while also, you know, do something on the board, because energizing is good, but you still need to urbanize and to industrialize if you want to do it. So that's it. I think C is a very solid experiment. I like playing C a lot. It's not my favorite, as you know, that's A. But I truly feel that this experiment can be the best one in some setups. While B, in my opinion, is almost always the second best, I think that C can be a real powerhouse in some setups. So look out for these setups, and yeah, good luck with playing it, and enjoy Nucleum as I do. Alright, see you next time for another Nucleum video. For now, that's finished. See you next time. Mario's out. Bye bye.